A related question from Norway: do you think it would be helpful to us as proponents of reason and science to join forces with Christians in criticizing Islam, in particular its treatment of women? Now again, this is a delicate issue which I've personally and professionally run into. It is true to say that the people who are most candid about the problem that Islam poses and its real doctrines tend to have their own ulterior motive, and it is not so ulterior, but it's the motive of advertising the merits of their own faith. It's not to say it's their only motive, but you have a lot of really animated Christians who attack Islam as the wrong faith, fully believing that they're in possession of the right faith. I don't see any particular reason to link up to join arms with them in any particular forum, but it is only honest to point out when they're not wrong. And the people in my camp, the non-believer camp, that talk about all religions as though they're by definition equivalent, and who talk about Christianity being just as bad in every case as Islam, are just being dishonest and offensive to Christians in ways that they don't need to be. It is not true that every religion poses the same threat of terrorism in the 21st century. And it is not true that every religion could pose the same threat of terrorism in the future. There are some religions that will never generate terrorism. And this is just obvious when you look at their doctrines. Now, this is not to say that Islam is worse across the board on every question that religion can be bad on. It's not bad on stem cell research. Muslims, for the most part, believe that the soul enters the embryo at the 40th day, or some say the 120th day. This is great for embryonic stem cell research. There's no problem sacrificing 3 to 5 day old human embryos within Islam. So Christianity, the specific beliefs of Christianity, pose a liability to that scientific research and all of the life-saving consequences we might enjoy as a result, in a way that Islam doesn't. Okay, so we can talk about that difference honestly, and that should be true across the board. And that's it's inconvenient that, as a matter of in the political sphere, it really is a unique problem with Islam that we have to confront, and it's very easy to worry that there's a racist motive or a nationalist motive or a xenophobic motive encroaching in the case of many people, and no doubt it is, especially in Western Europe at the moment. Judging by the questions that people often ask you at the end of a Q&A session when you talk about your book, The Moral Landscape, it seems to me that there is some confusion about your use of the word objectivity and science. People seem to think that you're speaking strictly about the role of the hard sciences in determining human values, and perhaps more important, people's general concept of objectivity implies that the phenomenon in question must be mind independent. So when you talk about objective morality or objective truths about human well-being, this doesn't make any sense to them, because they're thinking, well, this is a well-being and morality depend upon mind, so how could they be objective? Could you clarify this? Yeah, this is a real point of confusion for many people. People think that people don't notice that there are two senses of the word objective, and of the words objective and subjective. There's this sense of what's called ontology, of what there is to know in the universe, which is what facts are there to talk about. And there are objective facts and subjective facts. There are the facts of the material world spoken of in terms of physics and chemistry, etc. And there are facts of the subjectivity of any conscious system within that world, and what it's like to be you in this moment is a set of subjective facts which has objective underpinnings. It has a lot to do with your body and your brain and your world, etc. But we can talk about human subjectivity objectively in the epistemological sense, in the sense that we're not being self-deceived, that we're not lying, that we're constrained by rational claims, evidence-based claims. So, for instance, an example I use in the book, The Moral Landscape, and I often use in this context, I have something called tinnitus, which is often called tinnitus, which is a ringing in the ear, which you may have experienced if you've gone to a loud rock concert and you come home and your ears are ringing. In that case, it's transient, it goes away, but people can get it based on often some damage to the cochlea in the inner ear, and you get ringing in your ear that's basically around for the rest of your life. Now, I have this. I'm not lying about it. This is a phenomenon that is known to science. People report this. A lot is known about the kind of inner ear damage that can produce it. It can be associated with hearing loss in the appropriate frequency. I mean, we can study tinnitus. We can talk about tinnitus. I can tell you that my experience of it seems to be on the right side and is high frequency as opposed to low frequency. So I could match it to a tone that you produced in the world. This is all something that this is a feature of my inner life that I can represent in the spirit of scientific objectivity and about which science can know something. There is no impediment to studying tinnitus, and likewise, there's no impediment to studying any other feature of our subjective life. Any moods or emotions or experiences that people find compelling to study can be studied. Now, it's inconvenient that we must rely on self-report to some degree to study these things. Now, it's not that we simply have to take people's word for everything in their inner lives. We know that people are actually not always the best judge of the moment-to-moment character of their experience, and there are ways to get around self-report in certain experiments. But yes, the cash value of changes in experience is always change in experience, and there's often no surrogate for simply having people tell you how their experience has changed. That's not. It's something worth worrying about in terms of designing any specific experiment, but it's not a fundamental epistemological problem that rules out understanding human well-being or good and evil in scientific terms. It's just not. And if it rules those things out, it rules everything out about it rules the entire science of the mind out. There's just nothing to be known about depression or schizophrenia or anything else that people have been studying for decades in neuroscience and psychology, because these things are subjective experiences. In response to my last video, a reader asked a question about meditation and the claims I made about spiritual experience. You've said that millions of, quote, real mystics report that endless hours of meditation have transformed their conscious experience, but millions of people tell us that God talks to them on a regular basis, and others claim to have been abducted by aliens. So what's the difference? It seems that in every case, all we can do is take their word for it. Now, granted, these experiences might be subjectively real, but not actually real. Given that the goal of science is to understand reality, how can your claims about spirituality be scientifically justified? Well, I was trying to nullify that concern last time around. The distinction to make is between making claims about the character of your experience and making claims about physical reality or the universe at large. So what I was saying is that you can make claims about your experience and what various methodologies have done to change it, and these are of a piece with any other claim about experience that people make, and we can study these changes in experience. So we can study when someone comes into the lab and says they're depressed or they're hearing voices or they've got a terrible pain in their knee. These are claims about experience, and we can talk about how those experiences are arising and what to do about them. And spiritual experience is no different. You can talk about the experience itself and talk about how it's arising in the body at the level of neurophysiology, or what people are doing to engineer the experience. The difference is when you start talking about what the experience means for the universe, why you're having the experience in some ultimate sense. So the person who feels an experience of bliss while praying can talk about the experience of bliss. There's nothing irrational about doing that. To say that they're experiencing the bliss because it's the grace of God or the grace of Jesus, that is a claim about being in relationship to invisible others which may or may not exist. It's a claim about the attention of those very likely non-existent others on your person. These are claims that are unjustified and in principle unscientific. The claim that you were abducted by aliens is also a claim about the existence of aliens. They're coming to Earth for strange proctological experiments done on cattle and people. I mean, this is not. There are reasons to be skeptical of those claims, but if someone's had an experience where they woke up and they saw aliens in their room, it's very likely that it's a hallucination or a dream or something we want to talk about in that context. But they can still speak honestly about the character of the experience. It's the what it means in the external world that is the leap that is often unjustified. So in speaking about spirituality and mysticism and the experience of, quote, real mystics, I'm talking about the very positive changes that have occurred in people's lives based on making really sustained efforts at contemplation or meditation. And it's as easy to talk about those things rationally as it is to talk about any other change in experience that is internal. That is any change in the way you feel, any change in your understanding of yourself. It's inconvenient that many of these changes can't be demonstrated outwardly in precisely the way that we can demonstrate changes in athletic performance, say, but many of them can be demonstrated. Many of them, people can be emotionally quite different than they used to be. There are neurophysiological correlates of expertise in meditation that people have studied with neuroimaging. So all of this is tractable scientifically. It's just a new field of inquiry.